Part 127. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1261. Xiang Mingxiu was a good test subject because not only was he obedient, he also read and knew how to express his feelings. Man Bao can get complete feedback from him every time after giving him acupuncture, and she wrote it down. Knowing that the pain would make it difficult to sleep, Man Bao gave him another needle before going to bed. Seeing that he was gradually falling asleep, it was time to pull out the needle. Through the first two experiments, Man Bao already knew that the anesthetic effects of different acupuncture frequencies were also different. After the needle was pulled out, Xiang Mingxiu had about 2/4 of an hour before the pain would slowly recover. A person's perception of pain also decreases during sleep. Just hope he gets a good night's sleep. Man Bao got up and said in a low voice to Xiang Chao, if he is in severe pain in the second half of the night, call me and I will give him another needle. Be careful not to let it touch water or dirt. She doesn't have the anti-inflammatory needles written in the book, but she has pulsatilla, coptides, yinchin, buplurum, garlic, honeysuckle, andrographis paniculata, banlangen, scutellaria, purslane, and dandelion, all of which can also reduce inflammation. Teacher Mo found several anti-inflammatory prescriptions recorded in medical history for her, and many of the medicinal materials have become extinct in them, so there is no condition for experimentation. But she has it here. Take it internally and externally, and be careful, she doesn't believe that Xiang Mingxiu's wound will not heal. God is very generous. The temperature dropped sharply that night, let alone bacteria. I am afraid that even people are about to freeze to death. Of course, the bacteria are still there, just a lot less. So the next day, Man Bao still prepared the ointment to apply on him, bandaged the wound and touched his pulse. Man Bao nodded with satisfaction. It hurts, I'll add some painkillers to you later and give you another injection. Xiang Mingxiu breathed a sigh of relief and nodded. He was really worried, she kept making him resist. Xiang Liuyi and Xiang Chang also came to see Xiang Mingxiu. They also did not enter the door, but talked to him at the window. On a very cold day, the wind was blowing. Xiang Liuyi only said a few words before closing the window, and said to Xiang Chao, it's suddenly cold, we bought 2 new quilts, and the sun will come in a while. I came out and basked in the sun, and at night, I covered the second sun, so the weather can't be cold. Face down. Man Bao also put on the new clothes that Zheng made for her, and dressed herself up carefully. She was a little clumsy and tied her hair according to the hairstyle she learned that day, then inserted beads and flowers, and waited for her to go out. When Bai Erlang saw it, he couldn't help laughing. Bai Shan couldn't help but burst out laughing. Seeing Man Bao's angry pouting, he restrained his smile and went forward and pulled out the pearl flower. This braid is a little crooked, I'll fix it for you. But Bai Shan's hands were even more crippled than Man Bao's. She wasn't tied very well at first, but after he tidied up again, her hair was messed up. When Bai Erlang saw it, he laughed and twitched while holding his stomach. Bai Shan couldn't help laughing when he saw it. Seeing this, Mr. Zhuang shook his head and smiled, don't make trouble, go and comb your hair, and you'll be going out in a while. Man Bao could only go back to the house with a pouting mouth, and combed 2 more pulls, and then inserted 2 beads into it. Mrs. Lu and Mrs. Zheng came to pick them up and go to Suandu temple together. Master Xiang Lu didn't quite understand why he chose to go to Taoist temple today. They didn't have this custom, so they didn't go. It was rare for Friday Lang to be generous, and he took 100 yuan to Manbao and asked her to donate it to the Taoist temple in the name of the old Zhou family to pray for the family. This is the biggest sum of money that the old Zhou family has made. You must know that when they were in Qilai village, they sent a basket of eggs and a small bag of rice noodles, worth far less than 100 yuan. Mrs. Lu gave a large sum of money to the Taoist temple and asked them to do rituals for 3 consecutive days. Because there were many dead souls involved, the list she handed in not only included her son and Zhou Yin and his wife, but also she knew, yes, the one who died at the hands of the king of Yizhu 12 years ago. The 5 thick and heavy silver ingots were handed over to the Taoist priest, and the eyes of the 3 of Manbao couldn't help but follow the silver. Madame Lu turned her head to see them like this, she couldn't help laughing. She reached out her hand and tapped Manbao's nose and said happily, "I didn't feel bad for you to send out a few hundred gold before, what do you feel bad about now?" She said, "None of you are short of money. Don't make jokes like this." The 3 smiled embarrassedly. What Manbao thought in his mind was, 100 taels, if it were at home, it would be great to hand it over to Dao and them, and the fat and water would not flow into the fields of outsiders. Anyway, the steps for doing things are the same. Bai Shan thought that he still owes Bai Erlang money. He still doesn't know when he will be able to go back to Qilai village to get the money back to him, or if he can find a way to make some money in the capital. Bai Shan thought about it, and as his grandmother sat in the hall of the practice, he sat cross-legged and watched the Taoists recite the scriptures and practice. Since they were children, they have been good with Dao and Daoxu, and naturally they have read their scriptures. It is impossible to memorize them all, but they know a few scriptures that are often used in practice. Hearing the Taoist priests recite the scriptures they were familiar with, Bai Shan and the others slowly calmed down and simply closed their eyes and started reciting together. For a while, there were only their low chanting sounds and the sounds of Taoist priests walking around and doing things in the hall. Sandalwood curled up, the ritual was slowly over. Mrs. Zheng wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes, stepped forward to help Mrs. Lu up, and said to the 3 children who got up, "Go and see where Mr. Zhuang is, but there are more Jing'er to see, if not, we will go down the mountain and go home." Manbao said, "It's still spring and summer, and there are flowers to enjoy at that time." Mrs. Lu smiled, reached out and touched her head, "You can see it next year." Mr. Zhuang and Guanzu are sitting in the backyard room drinking tea and playing chess. Because of Mr. Zhang and Mr. Chen, he is also familiar with the Taoists in this Guan, especially the Guanzu. He and Mr. Zhang are good friends, so Zhuang, when the gentleman came to Suanduguan, he came directly to him. Manbao and the others also knew it, so they came to him with familiarity, and after bowing to the master, they stood to the side honestly. Mr. Zhuang glanced at the chess game that had just ended, and said with a smile, "It's a coincidence." The spectator also nodded and smiled, "Kiaji." He raised his head and glanced at the 3 teenagers waiting by the side, and smiled with Mr. Zhuang, "If you are very happy, Mr. Zhuang is very lucky, and so are the 3 little friends." With a bright smile on Mr. Zhuang's face, he laughed and said, "According to the Lord's auspicious words, it seems that it is the right time for us to fight today." The spectator nodded and smiled, naturally. After saying that, he got up and sent them down the mountain. This was the first time. Manbao insisted that it was the credit of the 100 taels, but Bai Shan believed that it was because the spectator saw their promising future. Bai Erlang followed silently, doing everything. "I didn't think so." Next update around 8 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1262. It was too cold, and as soon as they got in the car, the 3 of them closed the car window tightly. Bai Shan also disliked the car curtain being too thin, and said, "Go back and find a piece of felt to block it, otherwise the wind will blow in through the door." Manbao and Bai Erlang nodded together. "The sun is not very good today. It looks cloudy and seems to be snowing." Lujiang County has also experienced snow, but it is very rare, and it may only be seen once in several years. Moreover, the snow that falls is thin and melts in a short time when it falls into the palm of the hand, so the 3 of them are still looking forward to the snow. "I heard that the snowflakes in the north are as big as goose feathers, and they will spin in the air when they fall, which is particularly beautiful." Thinking about it this way, The three of them are not so complaining about the cold weather, but are still looking forward to snow. The carriage roared forward, and then stopped slowly at the lively part of the street. The three of them didn't bother to look out, and asked Daji directly through the curtain, "What's wrong?" Daji said, "Someone splashed water on the street, the water froze, someone walked over and fell, and now they are arguing, the yaman has arrived and is dealing with it." The three of them sat in the car with peace of mind and waited, but they could still feel the cold wind coming in through various cracks, and it was too cold. Bai Shan said, "I have to buy some furs." Man Bao immediately said, "Last time I saw the fox fur around Han Wunyangzi at the Li family's house, it was very beautiful." Bai Erlang said to Bai Shan, "If you are surrounded by fox fur, isn't that a male fox?" Bai Shan said, "You are suitable for bearskin." Man Bao couldn't help but burst out laughing, throwing his head back, almost falling over. Bai Erlang couldn't help exhaling, pointed to Man Bao and asked, "Then what do you think she is suitable for?" Bai Shan remained silent. There were still tears of laughter in Man Bao's eyes, and he looked at him with moist eyes, and was also curious. Bai Shan couldn't help clearing his throat and said, "Tiger skin." Bai Erlang laughed madly, patted his thigh and said, "Yes, yes, it's better to be the skin of a tigress, ha 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 ha." Bai Shan also squinted his eyes, his stomach hurts from laughing, and he has to dodge Man Bao's fist. Daji couldn't help saying, "Master, the car is going to reverse." The car is really about to fall, the car is not big, and the three people are still fighting in the car. Man Bao. Good luck. Man Bao, who was holding Bai Shan's hand and wanted to continue beating him, was stunned when he heard the familiar voice. He stopped and pricked up his ears to listen. "I seem to hear the voice of my fourth brother." Bai Shan and Bai Erlang pricked up their ears to listen, and heard a familiar voice outside the car calling out, "Daji." The two said, "We heard it too." The three immediately got up and lifted the curtain to go out to see, but because they were in a hurry, the three heads collided together, and they fell back with a yogurt. Daji didn't care about them. He had already found Shu Yulang in the crowd, and he led two teenagers to look for them against the crowd. When he saw Daji in the car, he couldn't help laughing, causing everyone nearby to turn towards them. It seems. Chu Hulang pushed the crowd away, stepped forward in 3 steps and 2 steps, and climbed onto the carriage and said happily, "I guess it was you." I said, "I heard the voices of Man Bao and the others from a distance, and as soon as I looked, it's really you." Man Bao grabbed his head and climbed out first. Seeing her fourth brother, she was so happy that she rushed up and hugged him. "Fourth brother, why are you here?" Chu Yulang was also very happy to see Man Bao, and rubbed her hair into a mess with his big hands, and then he laughed happily. "Your fourth sister-in-law gave you another nephew, isn't it winter? The herbs in the family are all after receiving and concocting. I will send it to Beijing, and take your fifth brother back by the way." Thursday Lang looked at Man Bao seriously, and said with some distress, "It seems to be thin. Did you suffer when you were in prison? Were you beaten in prison?" Bai Shan and Bai Erlang finally squeezed out. Bai Shan replied for her, "Brother Thursday, we were not beaten. She was thin because she was busy these days. We were all fat when we came out of prison." Shiro had a look of disbelief. Bai Erlang couldn't help but said, "It's true, although I can't go in to see them, but Zhou Lejun went. The family gives them food and drinks every day, and they have a good life, and when they come out, their faces are round." Thursday Lang said, "Man Bao's face is originally round." Bai Shan said, "It's more round." Anyway, in a word, they didn't endure hardship when they were in prison. Seeing that they were all so determined on Thursday, Lang heaved a sigh of relief, patted Man Bao's hands happily, and said, "It's fine, my parents are worried about you at home. By the way, my sister-in-law made winter clothes for you, before going out. I didn't expect you to be so cold here. I'm afraid that winter clothes are not enough. you have to add a few more clothes. Bai Shan looked in front of him and asked, Brother Thursday, who did you come with? Oh, I took the 3 sons and the others with me, and I met Magistrate Yang on the road. Oops, I forgot to tell Magistrate Yang and the others. Chuyo Lang turned around and got out of the car, waving with Man Bao and the others. I'll go and tell the Magistrate Yang and the others, you wait first. When the 3 heard that Magistrate Yang had also returned, they immediately jumped out of the carriage and followed Daji. After thinking about it, Daji could only look back, beckoned for a servant, handed the carriage to him, and jumped off the carriage to follow. Thursday Lang and the others were in the front of the car when they were stopped by the 2 families who were rolling and arguing. Thursday Lang squeezed to the side of a carriage, bowed and said to the people inside, Yang County Magistrate, Tang County Magistrate, I found my sister and them. The car window was pushed open, and a person stuck his head out, just in time to meet the eyes of the 3 people who were pushing up. Bai Shan and the others lit up, but the Magistrate Tang laughed, this is really fate, I didn't expect to return to the first place in Beijing. I met you in one day. The 3 of them hurriedly saluted, and Bai Shan greeted him warmly, Tang County Magistrate is free to come and sit at my house. The Magistrate Tang nodded and said, I must go some other day. When the 3 did not see Magistrate Yang, they probed curiously and asked, is Magistrate Yang not in the car? Magistrate Tang glanced back and smiled, now that there are so many people, he doesn't dare to show his face. The 3 were puzzled, why? A voice came from inside the car, come up and talk. The Magistrate Tang smiled slightly and closed the car window. The 3 of them were not seen, and stepped on the horse stool put down by the coachman and got on the carriage. Their carriage is much more spacious than theirs, but it doesn't look too spacious at the moment. Yang Heshu is sitting at the top, with a table in front, and on the table is a chessboard. Chess. Man Bao looked at the chessboard curiously, and before saying hello, he couldn't help but reach for the pieces. Will it not fall when playing chess in the car? Hey, it's fixed. Man Bao picked up the chess piece with a slight force. She glanced at the chess piece in her hand, then at the chessboard, and immediately smiled, it's a magnet. Good night. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1263. Magistrate Tang glanced at her and said, what magnet? This is a magnet, not iron. Man Bao touched the cool piece in his hand, nodded and said, yes, it's a magnet, but I think it looks like iron, so it's just a magnet. Magistrate Tang and Magistrate Yang looked down together and saw that it was slightly black in color, and it really looked like iron, so they didn't bother much. County Magistrate Tang leaned against the wall of the car and said with a smile, you know quite a lot. This magnet chessboard was acquired by accident, but it has been deceived by many people. Man Bayadao, it is recorded in Shennong's Materia Medica that magnets can enter the kidneys and nourish them. The kidneys govern the discharge, which keeps secrets for a long time and enriches the essence and qi. Strengthening bones, nourishing essence, and curing deafness, there are many ways to use it anyway. She found this thing when she was thinking about Shi Dalan's illness. At that time, she didn't know that the magnet was related to the magnet she bought in the mall when she was a child. Later, she found it in the pharmacy and found that the magnet could absorb iron sand. Seeing that she was interested, the shopkeeper Zheng also taught her how to identify a magnet, because there are 2 kinds of stones in the world that are very similar to it. Magistrate Tang and Magistrate Yang, I haven't seen you for a while, why is this child's focus so strange? Magistrate Yang coughed lightly, pulled the topic aside, and asked, where did you guys come from? Suan Duguan, Bai Shan said with a smile, we were fighting the Suan Duguan today, but we didn't expect to meet two adults on the road by such a coincidence. Man Bao, you and my fourth brother went to the capital together. The county magistrate Yang smiled and said, if we met on the road, we left together. Thanks to them, they were able to reach the capital so quickly on Thursday, otherwise it would have to be delayed for a few more days. As she was talking, a loud cry came from the front of the car, which made Man Bao shudder. She opened the curtain to look, and saw a few yeomen escort a man away with shackles, and a woman was crying behind her. Man Bao was curious, what happened? Although Magistrate Tang had been sitting in the car and talking to Man Bao and the others, he did not miss the cries outside, and said with a light smile, when water was splashed in the street, and people slipped and fell, they were treacherous and refused to recognize them. The county government has interrogated it. The people were escorted away, the victims were all scattered, and the policeman in the workshop shoveled the thin ice on the road, and the road became clear. On Thursday, Lang couldn't get out of the car when he saw Yao Mei, so he shrugged and went back to the mule car behind him and drove the car forward with others. He still wanted to pull Daji, but Daji refused, and he walked beside the carriage. Man Bao asked, sprinkle a basin of water, how is this judged? The magistrate Tang said with a smile, depending on the situation, you can beat the board and pay the fine and then release it, or you can be sentenced and locked up for a few years. Not to mention Man Bao, even Bai Shan was surprised, why is there such a big difference? Tang County Magistrate said, the magistrate is also a human being, and will decide the case according to the circumstances. If they sincerely admit their mistake, they will talk to the victim when the yamen arrives. Maybe they won't even have to go to court, but they slander and deny it, and they do commit a crime. It depends on the mood of the county magistrate. The capital is different from other places. The sewage in the home has its own place. Not to mention that it is a big winter now, and it is easy to freeze and slip, even if it is usually not dumped sewage. Tang County Magistrate said, the crime of their kind is easy. It's serious, it mainly depends on how the person is injured. Man Bao and the others didn't see the injured person, so they asked curiously, is the injury serious? Magistrate Tang happened to witness the scene of the crime, judging by his experience, he nodded and said, not light. The three of them pondered. They didn't seem to have the habit of pouring water out. When they got home, they had to tell their family members not to pour water out. The carriage hurried forward and stopped at the intersection. Magistrate Tang glanced outside and said, it's time to separate, and we'll meet again when we settle down. The three nodded and said goodbye to get out of the car. The carriages of the Tang family and the Yang family were lining up to move forward, and Man Bao remembered after realizing it, I forgot to say hello to Madame Kui. It's all right, come to the door next time. Bai Shan was a little puzzled, strange, why is Magistrate Yang sitting in the innermost part of the car? Man Bao also found it strange, yeah, it's a bit narrow to sit there, and I can't see out the window. It's so boring, and the chessboard is not right. At this time, Magistrate Tang and Magistrate Yang, who was sitting beside him, smiled and said, would you like to send you and your younger siblings home first? The county magistrate Yang smiled and said, thank you very much. The carriage turned around and headed to the Yang family first. Before it reached the gate of the Yang family, a servant rushed up. He glanced at the carriage bearing the Tang family's mark at the beginning, and then trotted to the car and asked in a low voice, but the uncle is back. The county magistrate Yang gave a soft and the servant became happy and whispered, uncle, there are a lot of girls gathered in front of the gate of our house, blocking your carriage, or we can go through the corner door. Enter. Magistrate Tang couldn't help laughing out loud. Magistrate Yang glanced at him and responded, and then the carriage quietly turned another corner into an alley. The door of this alley cannot enter the carriage, and they can only get off outside the door. Magistrate Yang got out of the car and went to a carriage behind to pick up Mr. Kui from the car. Tang County magistrate stepped on the horse bench and got out of the car, bowed and said with a smile, "See you tomorrow then." Magistrate Yang nodded, and Kui was also very grateful to Magistrate Tang. Tang County magistrate smiled and said, "Brother and sister, rest first. After a few days, your sister-in-law and I will post a message to invite you to spend time together." Kui hurriedly responded. Magistrate Tang watched them all enter and then got in the car and left. The carriage made a circle and went out from another alley. It happened to pass by the gate of Yang's house. He lifted the curtain to see that several carriages blocked the carriage that Yang Heshu had sent back in advance. There were several young and beautiful maids holding things. I wanted to send it to the car, but was stopped by the guards. So the scene stuck here. The magistrate Tang couldn't help but said, "Don't wait, Yang Heshu has already entered the mansion, and there is no one in the car." The curtains of a carriage were lifted, and a woman stuck her head out. Seeing the magistrate Tang, she said angrily, "Don't we know, let's just say, we just wanted to give him something, and it was delivered to us. Just go. Who will come back from out of town with only a carriage?" At first glance, it seems that the tiger leaves the mountain, and everyone is just pretending to be confused. Tang County magistrate silently lowered the curtain, patted his forehead and said, "Isn't it just confused? It's a pity that, no matter how persistent the girls insisted, the Yang family's guards still didn't let them go. If they didn't leave, they stood in the cold wind to stop them. Anyway, there was no owner in the car, so they were not in a hurry." Seeing that Yang Heshu was still so hard-hearted, the girls couldn't help but sighed, called their girls back, and went back home with gifts in silence. But still very happy, Yang Heshu has returned to Beijing. See you at 4 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1264. On Thursday, Lang was very busy. He brought a total of 5 people on this trip. They were all little beggars in Yazhu City. Because they were not old enough and had no family, they were not qualified to divide the land. Since they helped Shizalang deliver food once last year, they used to hang around behind Shirulang, and whenever he called, they would go to work. On Thursday, Lang was going to the capital, and the 3 sons finally discussed it and decided to come to the capital with him, while others chose to stay in Yazhu City. After all, they are familiar there, and the capital is too far away. If you get sick outside, or don't eat anything, you won't be able to return to your hometown if you die. Having experienced escape, they have a terrifying alertness to the outside world. Thursday Lang didn't make it difficult for them, and asked Thursday Lang to take care of them before he left. This time, he pulled 2 carts of medicinal materials, and he followed Man Bao back to Changqing Lane, where he met Mr. Zhuang, Mrs. Lu and others, and only then did he talk about family matters. Bai Shan asked the servants to go to the restaurant to call Weavolang and the others back, but they returned Weavolang. There was no other way. The ingredients for dinner had already been prepared, so the restaurant could not be closed. It's no nonsense when Friday Lang comes back, he will take him to the outer city to rent a house. Last time he received a letter from his family, he mentioned in the letter that the 4th brother would come to Beijing to replace him after the winter. At that time, Wu Lang prepared that his brother would bring a lot of people here. After all, he could not go to Beijing empty-handed. Since he was not empty-handed, he would have to bring a lot of people, otherwise he might not be able to make it to the capital alive. So he had already inquired with people about places suitable for short-term rentals, and people could just go there directly. Mrs. Lu hurriedly stopped them. "Why is it so troublesome? You don't need many servants here. I'll take those people in the front yard away in a while, and let Shiro lead them to live in the front yard." In the past, it was for the safety of Bai Shan and Zhou Man that they put so many servants in the courtyard, but now it is completely unnecessary. She was trying to rearrange the next person. Mrs. Lu and Mr. Zhuang smiled and said, Daji stays here, and one more person is left in the front doorman, and I will take the others away. Aunt Rong and her two maids who helped the cook lived in the side room where the kitchen and patio were, and would not go to the front yard, so in addition to the hall, a lot of rooms were vacated in the front yard. Mr. Zhuang also liked to be quiet, nodded in response, and asked with a smile, "Does the old lady have any new plans?" Mrs. Lu glanced at Bai Shanho and smiled, "I want to take advantage of the winter now to see if I can buy a small village near the capital, so that everyone can stay in the village for a while if they get bored of living in the city." Mr. Zhuang nodded, indicating that he understood. Bai Shan was surprised, "Grandma, is our family going to buy a property in the capital?" Mrs. Lu smiled and said, "Our family had already bought property in the capital before you were born, but now it's just more." Counting the newly purchased house in Early Lane, the Bai family has 2 houses in the capital. According to Bai Shan's own speculation, his family should have a shop in the capital, but it is definitely not in his name, not even in his grandmother's name. It was in his mother's name, so he didn't know. But whether it is a house or a shop, its meaning is still different from that of the field. When Mrs. Lu wanted to buy Zhuangzi, she always felt that she wanted to live here for a long time. But Thursday Lang didn't think so much. He only thought that Mrs. Lu was so rich that she could buy land in the capital. So he complied and went to greet his friends. Mrs. Lu asked people to clean up the room, and all the family members went home. She also asked people to buy a lot of mutton and came back, intending to clean up the dust for Thursday. After Thursday Lang washed and changed into clean clothes, Man Bao had already given Xiang Mingxiu needles. He took a look out of the window and greeted Xiang Mingxiu, "Xiang Er Gongzi, my parents also said to wait. I'll treat you to a drink when you go back to Jianese Road." Xiang Mingxiu froze for a moment, "Rather unbelievable, uncle and aunt also know me." "Of course I do," Man Bao wrote and came back to tell us. Sigh, Shu Yulang sighed, "You are condolences, the days to come are still long, and if you need help, just say, although me and Zhou and Suizhu are separated by a distance. It's a bit far, but it's almost 2 days after driving, right?" He has never been to Suizhu, so he is not too sure about it. Xiang Mingxiu exhaled a breath and said, "Yes, it's a bit far. It takes about 3 days to go to Zizhu or Yizhu before going to Suizhu." Thursday Lang really felt sympathy for Xiang Mingxiu. Their uncle and aunt were so sad when their uncle died, but his whole family died. And Xiang's family also has a good impression of the Zhou family. After all, there is Man Bao, you have affection, and I have righteousness. Shiro quickly got to know the Xiang family. Sitting at the table drinking and eating meat, he introduced the 3 brothers and 3 sons he brought to them, and the 2 sides talked very well. For revenge, Xiang Mingxiu has always been with the refugees. He usually sells goods from the south to the north, and sells goods from the west to the east. After all, revenge requires a lot of money and food. Xiang Chao has experienced these things a lot with Xiang Mingxiu, so naturally he and Shiro Lang can chat very well. Seeing what they were talking about, Mrs. Lu smiled and asked people to open 2 tables so that they could all sit down. It was only now that Thursday Lang had time to sit down and talk to Man Bao. He rubbed her head, "My parents are really worried." Man Bao turned his head and smiled at him. On Thursday, Lang asked, "King of Yizhu is dead now, let's forget about our family's hatred. Let me ask you, do you want to go home?" Everyone at the table looked over. Thursday Lang said, "If I go home, when I sell the medicinal materials, I will also sell the shop. Let's buy some rare things in the capital and sell them back, and we can make a fortune." Mrs. Lu and Mr. Zhuang. Without thinking, Man Bao shook his head and said, "No, I haven't learned my medical skills well. There are many powerful doctors and imperial physicians in the capital. Then they can't teach you, it's all about housekeeping." Man Bao said, "They are willing to teach me, I have the ability to exchange with them. Thursday Lang did not doubt that Man Bao did this when he was in Yazhu city. You teach me a disease, and I teach you a prescription. Didn't she rely on her ability to study in Ji Shitang? Thursday Lang asked, then when will you study well and go home? Man Bao said with a little guilty conscience, I must go home, that is, I promised my friend to go to other places. Bai Shandao, Thursday brother, medicine is not easy to learn, and we have to study again. I am afraid that we will not be able to study well for 3 or 2 years, but we must go home when we have the chance. Okay, will you go back for the new year? Man Bao looked at Mr. Zhuang, and Bai Shan looked at Mrs. Liu. Man Bao respectfully saluted everyone, then spread out his little hands and said, ask for a monthly pass. Next update at 6 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1265. Mr. Zhuang said with a smile, let's go back. At that time, I came to Beijing very smart, and there were many things that I didn't explain. Mrs. Liu also said, we still have to go back to Longzhou to worship our ancestors. If your father has to settle his grievances, he always has to sit in front of his grave. On Thursday, Lang planned the time. He still smeared the capital, and he didn't decide whether to stay in the capital or not. However, seeing Man Bao's confident appearance, although he still prefers Yazhu, he still nodded and said, okay, I see. Fifth, do restaurants make money? Friday Lang said, now the business is getting better and better, and I have made a lot of money. Thursday Lang's eyes brightened and he became happy. How much did you earn? Friday Lang, all the money earned is spent. Thursday Lang was dumbfounded, so little? What's the difference between that and not earning anything? How much can the flour cost? Since it's not about spending, it's about earning. Thursday Lang said earnestly, Goro, you need to know how to spend money in business. Don't be so stubborn as you used to be at home. Your daughter-in-law is married, so what are you saving for? Wu Wu Lang gave him a sideways look and said, who said I was swindling? When Lijun comes back, you can ask her how much money we earn. Besides, who said that if you marry a daughter-in-law, you don't need to save money? My son will have to marry in the future. Where's the daughter-in-law? Okay, stop arguing. Man Bao habitually stopped between the two older brothers and said, the fifth brother made a lot of money, and they spent it all for me. Thursday Siro stared at Man Bao. Man Bao said, I was assassinated before. In order for someone to save me, I spent hundreds of gold bounties, and I spent all the money. Chu Yulang widened his eyes, you were assassinated? Didn't the king of Yazhu all die? What did the king of Yazhu do when he escaped from the capital? Man Bao's letter when he went back reported good news but not bad news, so the old Zhou family didn't know about it, but now Shiro is here, and he saw her with full beard and full tail. Man Bao was so excited that he exaggerated the life and death struggle that day, and Bai Shan and Bai Erlang added that the three people were talking about ups and downs, and they said each of them was heroic. Everyone was stunned by the hearing of Thursday Lang and Xiang Xia. Because Xiang Mingxiu and Xiang Chao were still in prison at that time, they only vaguely knew that they had been assassinated, but they didn't know the twists and turns, and they all listened to it for a while. Seeing what they were talking about, Mr. Zhuang shook his head with a smile and let them go. The yard was lively and lively. When it was getting dark, Mrs. Liu took Zheng's farewell back to Erliu Lane. On Saturday, Lang and the others also came back, so the yard became even more lively. The moon gradually climbed up, and it was too cold outside. Shiro let the three sons and the others go to sleep. Weivu and Saturday were given to Xiang Mingxiu, and they lived with Shiro in the front yard together. It was only one night anyway, and they had to go back to the store early tomorrow morning. The three brothers sat cross-legged on the chase bunk with their two elder nephews. Man Bao and Zhou Lejun searched and found 2 quilts to send to them. Bai Shan also turned over his own cabinet and also contributed a bed. Bai Erlang contributed a lot of delicious food, brought a lot of things on a tray, and a few people sat cross-legged on the chase shop to talk. Zhou Lejun briefly talked about the operation and income of the restaurant. She kept all these in her heart, and she knew it without going through the account book. On Thursday, Lang was relieved to hear that the restaurant did not lose any money, and then took out the money he brought, and gave Man Bao a look. Originally, my parents were afraid that you would be wronged in the capital, so they called me all the money from the family. I brought it, but you don't need it now, you have to take it back later. Man Bao asked, 4th brother, how are you going to sell the medicinal materials? Tomorrow, I'll go see the shopkeeper of Ji Shitang with you. Okay, I'll take you there, and then you can talk. What are you doing here? Asked Thursday Lang. I'm going to the palace to see the crown prince. Thursday Lang swallowed. Yeo Mei, are you so good now? Bai Erlang said, what's the matter? She even treated the queen. Man Bao raised his head proudly, and Shiro said that he had to slow down for a while, and then talk about it when he calmed down. Everyone left him to relax, and said to himself, it's really cold. Saturday Lang said, they said it's going to snow soon, and it will be even colder after the snow. I think we need to prepare more braziers in our store. Otherwise, if a distinguished guest comes to the door, I'm afraid it will be too cold in the box to sit still. Zhou Lejun was sensitive and asked, who said that? Zhou Lishong laughed, it must be Sister Chiu from the mutton restaurant next door. I saw Uncle Six standing at the door talking to her this morning. When Thursday Lang heard this, he immediately returned to his senses, forgetting all the queens and crown princes, grabbed Saturday Lang and asked with a smile, you finally want to marry a wife? On Saturday, Lang's face turned red, 4th brother, don't talk nonsense, I have nothing to do with anyone. But Shiro thinks it's not. When did Laolu blushed when he talked about marrying a daughter-in-law? He grabbed Saturday Lang and said, if you like it, you like it, what are the big men twisting? The 3 Man Bao were also very curious, and they all stared at Saturday Lang with piercing eyes. Saturday Lang looked annoyed, really not, 4th brother, don't listen to the wind and rain, if you don't believe it, ask the 5th brother and Lejun. Thursday Lang looked at Wu Zhou Lang and Zhou Lejun, who seemed to be more stable than Zhou Lishong and Zhou Liwei. Friday Lang said, father and mother may not agree to this marriage. Zhou Lejun said, Sister Chiu likes 6th uncle. Sachiro. Thursday Lang, what kind of messed up generation is this? Why didn't father and mother agree? Their family is very prominent. Friday Lang said, not so prominent, but it must be thicker than our family background. So what, our family is not bad now, and we will never treat their daughters badly. Friday Lang, but there is only one daughter in their family. Thursday Lang thought about it, is their house going to come? That's inappropriate. Zhou Lejun finally interjected, you haven't asked Sister Chiu, how do you know they want a son-in-law? Saturday Lang sighed deeply and said, why are there so many people in this world who worry about others? Man Bao asked him curiously, 6th brother, don't you like that Sister Chiu? Saturday Lang tilted his head and thought, it's not that I don't like it, it's just that I didn't think about marrying her. Bai Shan also became curious, then who do you want to marry? I don't want anyone, said Saturday Lang. It's very tiring to cook in a restaurant. There are so many things to do every day, and I have to reconcile the accounts when I'm done. I'm so tired that I don't want to soak my feet. Where do I have time to think about it? When Man Bao heard this, he immediately turned his head to Wu Wulang and Zhou Lejun and said, 5 brothers, Lejun, you can't always call 6th brother like this, please invite more people from the back kitchen, so that 6th brother can think of getting married when he is not so busy. Wu Wulang turned to look at Saturday Lang, Laolu, Just tell me if you want to be lazy. Saturday Lang, I'm not, I don't. Bai Shan bows and asks for a monthly pass. I'm thinking, I pulled a few people out for a walk these days to ask for a monthly pass. Next update around 9 p.m. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1266. Bai Shan coughed lightly, and after attracting everyone's attention, he said, Man Bao is right. Now that you are free, there are more things to think about. Saturday Lang was reluctant to pay. Didn't you already hire a helper, and there's a big head and a second head, it's almost there. Man Bao stared at Friday Lang. Thursday Lang made a decision with a big wave of his hand, that's it, choose 2 more cooks who are better at cooking. You also teach others how to cook, and don't do everything by yourself. Saturday Lang learned half of his cooking skills from his sister-in-law, and half learned it secretly, and now he can open a restaurant by himself, so he shook his head, that's not good, what if I teach my apprentice to starve to death? Crowd. Man Bao, you always study and do better and better, and if you master a few core dishes, no one will be able to pass you. She said, look at the 4 doctors in RG Shitang, each of them has good skills. Dr. Ding's medical skills are generally good. He can talk about any kind of disease, and he can also prescribe prescriptions to treat people, and incurable diseases can also be seen. Many. Dr. Gu is still young and is still studying like me, but he has a book of typhoid fever left by his predecessors at home, and he has a lot of insight on diseases such as typhoid fever. As for Dr. Tao, Man Bao said, he is also very knowledgeable. It's amazing, I'm very good at children's diseases, and acupuncture is the best when I go in, no one can compare to me in the methods of ulcer doctors. But I will consult with Dr. Ding, Dr. Tao, and Dr. Gu, and the 3 doctors will also consult with me. I will teach them the same way. They know everything and say everything, but everyone has something they are good at. I think, cooking, like medicine, is inexhaustible. Seeing Saturday Lang's confused face, Bai Shan smiled and explained to Man Bao, before you only knew how to cook with urns and pots, but later you learned about using iron pots, and when you have figured out all these kinds of kitchen utensils, in this world there are endless ingredients for you to ponder and study, and when these are all pondered, how can you know that there will not be more kitchen utensils and more ingredients? So this cooking skill is the same as medicine. You don't have to be afraid of being learned, because as long as you keep improving, no one can replace you. They understood Bai Shan's metaphor, but why do I bother to research new dishes? It's better if I don't teach others. Wu Wulang gave him a sideways look and said, if you don't do research, others will do research. There will always be people with the same temperament as Man Bao. When the time comes, delicious dishes will come out. Do you want to eat them? Anyway, I went. Zhou Lishong's 3 children also nodded, and then attacked Saturday Lang together. Uncle Lu, you are too aggressive. Look at my aunt, when she was very young, she would search for herbs in the mountains and see the grass in the corner behind the house. I can't even walk, so my aunt is so powerful at such a young age. If you were like my sister-in-law and saw that the spatula couldn't move when you were very young, you must be very good now. Saturday Lang, it's like I like to cook since I was a child. It's not like you all know how to cook, so I learned this craft from my sister-in-law. The purpose of Saturday Lang is to learn a skill and earn a lot of money. Now that he has learned the skill, he can also make money. Thinking of this, Saturday Lang is also a little confused. What should he do next? Seeing him pondering, Bai Shan and Man Bao turned their heads together to look at Shai Zilang and Wei Volang and said, look, as long as you have free time, you will think. Thursday Suro and Friday, as if they were stopping him from thinking. Bai Shan patted Saturday Lang on the shoulder and said, "Saturday brother, don't think about getting married or not, you can think about what you want to do in the future." The master said that only those who know what they want to do in the future know how to leave. "What way, how to go?" Saturday Lang asked. "What can I do?" "That can do a lot," Man Bao said. "For example, if you open a restaurant in one state, or make a restaurant famous all over the world." "Then don't think about it," said Saturday Lang directly, "I don't have that ability." "Okay," Man Bao didn't reluctantly, "then it's the best restaurant to open the whole street." "This is not my restaurant alone, but my home." Thursday Lang asked, "Do you still want to open one by yourself?" After thinking about it on Saturday, Lang shook his head. "It's too much trouble to open a restaurant, I just prefer to cook, but I want to eat delicious food from other places, and then learn my skills." After all, he actually likes eating more than cooking. It's just that his sister-in-law is not used to him, and there are not so many delicious foods at home, and besides the sister-in-law, other people's craftsmanship is not as good as his, so he has to do it. But if he has a lot of money. Saturday Lang pondered, "If I had a lot of money, I would eat all the delicious food in the capital, and then change the place, eat the delicious food there again, and learn their skills. In this way, I can eat delicious food and make money. I will not be afraid of running out of money in my life." Friday Lang asked, "What about the daughter-in-law?" Saturday Lang pondered, "If only I could find a daughter-in-law who is willing to leave home for me to eat." Thursday Lang asked, "What about your parents?" Saturday Lang said, "Father and mother are in good health now. The money I earn will be handed over to the public according to the rules. When they are old, I will go home and give them the care of them." Man Bao said, "Then go and ask Mrsu if she would like to go out to eat delicious food with you." Saturday Lang's face was slightly red, and he said, "Is this bad?" Bai Erlang was all too familiar with this expression, and snorted, as expected in the book, "A man's mouth, a deceiving ghost, why don't you like your blushing?" When everyone heard the words, they all stared at Saturday Lang's face, and immediately laughed and laughed. Saturday Lang became more and more embarrassed. After laughing, Zhou Lejun scolded Bai Erlang, "It's like you're not a man." Shirojiro. Saturday Lang had a rare insomnia. He used to have nothing on his mind. He was too tired during the day and got up too early in the morning, so he slept on his pillow every day and rarely thought about anything. It can be seen that the words of Man Bao and Bai Shan kept colliding in his mind, and then he couldn't help but think, if this restaurant at home was always open, would he be the chef for life in the back kitchen? Before tonight, he didn't think there was anything wrong with it. He could make so much money every day, which was something he didn't dare to think about before, but he didn't seem to spend much when he earned it. Li Zhong and Li Wei also bought new clothes, but because he was in the back kitchen, I didn't even buy new clothes for fear of getting dirty with the fumes. Thinking about it carefully, it seems rather boring after such a long time, but if he really runs around to eat delicious food and spends so much money, Dad knows if he will break his legs. Bai Erlang rolls and asks for a monthly pass. See you tomorrow. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1267. It was only dawn the next day, and Saturday Lang got up. Their restaurant usually cooks buns and some naan for breakfast in the morning. He woke up early, but when he saw the fourth brothers were sleeping soundly, he lying down without moving, and then fell asleep in a daze. At last he couldn't lie down anymore, he got up and put on his clothes and got out of bed, then went to tug at Wu Lang and Li Zhong Li Wei, and whispered, "Get up quickly." The three of them squeezed into the quilt, and their heads were almost buried in the quilt. Jolie muttered, "Why are you getting up so early? The restaurant doesn't open for breakfast today. Then there's still lunch, so I have to buy some ingredients." Saturday Lang tried so hard to finally wake them up. On Thursday, Lang Lei couldn't move and continued to sleep soundly, but on Friday, Lang couldn't see it, so he patted his fourth brother, why are you still so lazy? Thursa Lang's snoring paused, then rolled over and went back to sleep. Although he was reluctant, Thursday Lang finally went to the restaurant with Saturday Lang and the others. The streets in the cold weather have become popular, and the restaurants that make food are basically open. Some people set up stoves outside the door to sell naan, and some people set up stalls to sell noodles. Saturday Lang stopped in front of a stall and bought 10 large naan. Thursday Lang, our family is a restaurant, are you still buying it outside? Saturday Lang, it's a cold pot and a cold stove. I only opened the door just now. Where can I make food for you? Thursday Lang muttered, it's still not as good as the sister-in-law. The sister-in-law can pull out the noodles immediately after pouring a bowl of noodles. On Saturday Lang ignored him and went straight to the restaurant. On Friday, Lang had driven the mule cart to the back door and stopped, opened the store door from the inside, and everyone moved the door panel back. The naan cakes were still hot. Everyone shared the cakes. On Saturday, Lang took one more and went to the next door. The Zhou brothers couldn't help but look up. Saturday Lang looked back at Zhou Lishong and Zhou Liwei, frowned and said, why are you standing still? You don't want to talk, come and serve the sheep soup. The two came back to their senses, and immediately chased after them with naan cakes in their mouths. Next door is a mutton restaurant. In the morning, they only sell mutton soup made from mutton bones and sheep scorpions. Lunch and dinner are more abundant. His mutton and mutton soup are quite famous on this street. Saturday Lang bought 5 bowls of sheep soup, kept 1 bowl for himself, and let Zhou Lishong and Zhou Liwei carry 2 bowls back. He handed the naan in his hand to the old man Chiu who was watching the stall, and he took a bowl of mutton soup and sat and drank it in their shop. The old man Chiu took the naan, and he was not polite, poured himself a bowl of sheep soup, and added some sheep scorpions to Saturday Lang by the way, then sat across from him and ate, and asked with a smile, yesterday your shop closed early, today I didn't catch the morning market, what's the matter at home? Saturday Lang nodded, my fourth brother is here, so let's go home and have a look. Yo, then that particularly handsome young man who came back with you just now is your fourth brother? Saturday Lang nodded. The old man Chiu laughed, you brothers and nephews all look alike. That's right, his mother said that they all look like father, especially his fourth brother. Your fourth brother is here too. Will the family all move to the capital? That's not true. There are still a lot of fields at home. How could it be possible to come to the capital? The old man Chiu was a little disappointed. As soon as he looked up and saw his daughter came out, he smiled and got up. He took the bowl and said, Pei Niang, come and see the stall, and Dad will go back and see the mutton that was just delivered this morning. Chiu Pei Niang responded, stood in front of the stall, lifted the lid of the pot and stirred it for a while to let the aroma waft out and then closed the lid. She talked to Saturday Lang as usual, Saturday brother, what do you have for lunch? Saturday Lang said, it's almost the same as yesterday. He looked up at Chiu Pei Niang, hesitated for a moment and then asked, Pei Niang, have you ever thought about leaving home in the future? Chiu Pei Niang was stunned for a moment, then her face turned a little red, she poked the charcoal in the big stove, and whispered, I never thought about it, my parents are in the capital. Saturday Lang felt that she had misunderstood her meaning, so she frowned in distress and thought, that, I didn't mean that, I mean, not to go to my house, but to go somewhere else. Chiu Pei Niang's face changed, and she said palely, somewhere else? Where? Just go anywhere, no matter where. Chiu Pei Niang's face darkened, she put down the wooden stick with a bang, and said with a stern face, if you don't go, I won't go anywhere, just stay with my parents in the capital. Hidden behind the door of his own shop, Zhou Lishong patted Zhou Lishong's head hard, and said in a low voice, Lulu is so stupid, he can't even say a word. Zhou Lizhong, why does Uncle Six beat him if he can't speak? But they were not far from the boiler at the moment. He was afraid that his words would disturb the two people over there, so he could only admit it aggrievedly. Saturday Lang probably knew that what he said was misleading, but he didn't know how to explain it. He opened his mouth and was speechless for a while, so he could only say dryly, "I didn't mean that." But what it meant, he couldn't tell. Jolie, who was so anxious, couldn't help stomping his feet. Wu Zhou patted Jolie twice and whispered, "Why is Lao Lu so stupid, he can't say nice things?" "Zhou Lizhong, why are you beating me?" The four of them huddled behind the door and whispered, not enough to show their heads. They continued to listen with their ears pricked up. Suddenly, a voice sounded, "Fourth uncle, fifth uncle, what are you doing?" Chiu Paniang, whose eyes were red, turned her head to look at the words, and saw several heads crowded behind the door of Zhuji restaurant next door, who were lying on the back of the door frame at this time. Her face darkened. Zhou Lijun's face was also not good looking. Standing in front of the street, he pinched his waist and said angrily, "Why didn't you wait for me in the morning? I'll call you in the back, you're not stopping, do you know that I'm chasing you out of the alley?" Four people. Saturday Lang, who came out after hearing the words. They really don't know. Zhou Lijun exhaled angrily, snorted, then turned around and said to Daji who sent her over, "Uncle Daji, you have breakfast in the store before you go back. Fourth uncle, you said you want to go to see Zheng with your aunt." The big shopkeeper, in the end, ran out alone. "Is the little aunt waiting for you or not?" Thursday Lang forgot all about it, just thinking about seeing this Mrs. Chu. Zhou Lijun let out the anger in his chest, and when he looked up, he saw Chiu Paniang's red eyes. She paused, stepped forward with concern and asked, "Sister Chiu, what's the matter with you?" No one asked, but when someone asked, Chiu Paniang's eyes became even redder. I don't know if she was smoked by the hot soup, and with tears in her eyes, she turned around and went to the backyard. When Zhou Lijun saw it, he immediately followed. It just so happened that someone came to buy soup, and Saturday Lang hesitated for a while, then silently stepped forward to help watch the stall. On Thursday, Lang's liver hurt. When did Lao Lu become a stuffy gourd? Friday Lang was often with Saturday Lang, and when he heard the words, he said, "What's the matter, fourth brother, haven't you become more cunning?" On Thursday, Lang's teeth hurt. "Your mouth hasn't changed." Next update around 4 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1268. Thursday Lang walked to Saturday Lang and swayed around, shook his head, made a bowl of soup, and greeted Shang Daji to eat naan in the store. Zhou Lijun followed Chiu Paniang into the backyard of their house. Old man Chiu and mother Chiu were in the backyard handling the sheep delivered in the morning. When they saw their daughter come in with red eyes, they asked in surprise, "Why, are you being bullied?" Chiu Paniang held back her tears and said, "No." After saying that, he pushed the door directly into the house. Zhou Lijun chased in, greeted them, and squeezed into the house. The husband and wife of the old man Chiu looked at each other, and the old man Chiu put down the knife and wiped his hands and went out, while the mother Chiu quietly looked into the room through the crack of the window, and vaguely saw Zhou Lijun sitting opposite her daughter. But she heard what they said. Zhou Lijun took out the veil to wipe Chiu Paniang's tears, and asked, "Sister Chiu, is it that my sixth uncle can't speak to make you angry?" Chiu Paniang turned her back, wiped her tears, and said angrily, "If he doesn't mean that, don't come to talk to me. I'm the only one in my family, but I'm not letting anyone bully me. What does he mean?" Zhou Lijun was very curious about what her sixth uncle said. So she turned to Chiu Paniang and asked, "Sister Chiu, what did my sixth uncle tell you first?" Chiu Paniang's face changed a few times, and then he spat, "You go and ask him yourself." Oh, why do you ask me to run back and forth? Tell me quickly, is my sixth uncle finally enlightened to propose marriage to you? Qiu Peinyang's eyes were even redder, and the tears couldn't help falling. She wiped her tears while sobbing and choked, "Bah, who should propose marriage to? Whether he mentions it for himself or someone else, he should find my parents, and I count." What happened? Zhou Lejun was at a loss. Who else can my sixth uncle propose marriage to besides himself? Oh Sister Qiu, I'm not an outsider anymore. Why do you still say such angry words? Can't you be the master of half of your marriage? Otherwise, she wouldn't have been engaged and married until now. Isn't it because her parents liked it, she didn't like it, and what she liked, her parents couldn't say that she would be a son-in-law, so has it been delayed until now? Qiu Peinyang was not a stingy person. She wiped away her tears and repeated what Lang Gang said to her on Saturday, and then asked Zhou Lejun, does he want to tell me to a passing merchant, or does he want to elope with me? What does it mean to be casual? Where are you going to walk around? Zhou Lejun. She can be sure now that her sixth uncle has taken a fancy to others, otherwise he would not have asked them that. Thinking of her sixth uncle's age, if she doesn't talk about her relatives, I'm afraid she really won't be able to marry a daughter-in-law. So she coughed lightly, Sister Qiu, you really misunderstood my sixth uncle. Of course, it's also my fault that my sixth uncle can't speak. She said, he doesn't really mean anything else, that is, his ambitions are a little different from others. Do you know why my sixth uncle has never married a wife? Qiu Peinyang had calmed down. She wiped away her tears and asked, why? Because he likes to eat and earn money. He wants to eat delicious food everywhere in the future, and then learn some skills. He feels that he can no longer go out after marrying a daughter-in-law, Zhou Lejun said meaningfully, so, no matter how my grandparents urged me, my sixth uncle gritted his teeth and refused to talk about kissing. If he didn't like it very much, he would definitely not bring it up. Qiu Peinyang's whole face was blushing, but soon the redness faded and she became pale. Yes, but what about the parents and the elderly? They can't walk around, right? Zhou Lejun said, what's so difficult? My grandparents have my uncle and the others, they can go back when they are old and the sixth uncle will go back. As for your parents, don't worry about it. You think my sixth uncle can leave if he wants to leave? Is it someone? He wants to eat more delicious food and learn more skills, and these things in the capital alone are enough for him to learn for a few years. Qiu Peinyang was moved. Zhou Lejun bumped into her shoulder, how about Sister Qiu, should I call you sixth auntie in the future? Qiu Peinyang's face flushed, she turned around and said angrily, don't be silly, there's nothing wrong with the 8 characters. Then don't cry, or Uncle Qiu should say that my sixth uncle bullied you. When Qiu Peinyang heard her name, she couldn't help sighing, look at your name, I heard your sixth uncle call my father and eldest brother yesterday, but I also called him Saturday brother, what about the seniority? Zhou Lejun said indifferently, it will be changed after the appointment is made. Qiu Peinyang's face was flushed, and she stopped talking while holding on to the veil. Zhou Lejun asked her in a low voice, then do you agree or not? Qiu Peinyang said in a low voice, it's no use if I promise or not, this is the order of my parents, the matchmaker's words, right? My fourth uncle and fifth uncle are here, but they can't be the master of my sixth uncle, but don't be afraid, and my little aunt is here. My little aunt can be the master of my grandparents. Qiu Peinyang also knew Man Bao and had met him several times. She knew Zhou Lejun well, and heard her mention that her little aunt was very good more than once. She pursed her lips and asked, will your aunt like me? Don't worry, my little aunt is very nice. When I'm free another day, I'll bring her to see you. Even if this matter was temporarily over, Mother Qiu quietly slipped out of the window. Before it was noon, Qiu Peinyang was cleaning the tables and chairs in front of her, and Mother Qiu told him what she heard in the corner of the morning. Then he said, listen to this, Saturday Lang is someone who often travels far away. The old man Chiu was stewing mutton when he heard the words, what are you worrying about? I think Lejun is right. There are so many delicious food in this capital, and there are also in the surrounding cities and counties. I don't know how long it will take. Then what happens when he finishes visiting these places? Hey, you Elmhead, he even has a child by then, he can leave the child and run out by himself. If we have a headache, will the girl leave us and go, seeing things that are not shadowy? He said, isn't it because he was filial, courteous, and steady when we first saw him? As long as there is no problem with his personality. Mother Chiu sighed, I think Panyang herself is very willing. Don't you want to, said the old man Chiu, I don't want to talk about this whole street, but I'm just talking about the people she's seen over the years, who is more handsome and polite than him. Old man Chiu paused and said, I saw his fourth brother today, don't say, he is 2 points more handsome than them, and looking at how many children in their family, the Zhou family's children are all good looking. Ah! So if his daughter had a baby. The old man Chiu narrowed his eyes with joy, lowered his voice and asked, I just talked to that Shiro, guess what he said? What did you say? He said that his daughter-in-law gave birth to another son. Now their grandchildren have only 3 granddaughters, but they have 8 grandchildren. Mother Chiu. The old man Chiu sighed, if there are too many of these things, they are worthless, and so is the grandson, so I thought, I don't point to Saturday's husband to enter the marriage, and if I have a son in the future, I can give him the surname Chiu. See you at 8 p.m. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1269. Man Bao stood in front of the door and waited for a while, but instead of waiting for Shai Zuo Lang, he waited for Eunuch Wu and the Forbidden Army behind him. Bai Shan, who was standing at the gate with Man Bao in a daze, raised his eyebrows at Eunuch Wu when he saw it. Eunuch Wu hurriedly explained that they were ordered by the prince to take Zhou Man into the palace to see the princess. Man Bao glanced at the imperial army behind him and asked, don't you need to change the inner prisoner's clothes? Wu Gonggong said, Dr. Zhou Xiao is joking, you are not an internal supervisor, how can you change your clothes? Man Bao understood, she glanced sadly at the end of the alley, turned her head and said to Bai Shan, forget it, wait for my fourth brother to come back and tell him that I am going to the palace. Bai Shan nodded, then turned back to the backyard with Man Bao. Eunuch Wu was stunned for a moment, then quickly ran after him, Dr. Zhou Xiao, this is. I have to go back and get the medicine box. Eunuch Wu wanted to follow, so Bai Shan and Man Bao did not speak along the way. When they got to the backyard, Eunuch Wu went to say hello to Mr. Chuang, while Bai Shan followed behind Man Bao into the house. Man Bao packed the medicine box, while Bai Shan pushed open the window, looked back at Eunuch Wu being welcomed into the study by Mr. Chuang, and said, it seems that the palace takes this matter very seriously. Man Bao looked up and smiled, it's not a bad thing, is it? Bai Shan nodded with a smile, reached out and picked up a strand of her untied hair and tangled it in the tug, and said, don't you like money? If they mention it this time when they enter the palace, you can express it? Man Bao pursed his lips and smiled. This time, Man Bao entered the palace openly, but instead of going to the Taiji Palace, he went directly to the East Palace. The Crown Princess knew early on that Man Bao was coming, and when she arrived, she was sent to pick her up. This is not the first time the two of them have met. The Crown Princess has rewarded many treasures before, but this is the first time they are sitting together and talking. The Crown Princess coughed lightly, eased her embarrassment, and said, did Dr. Zhou Xiao eat too early? Man Bao nodded, I have used it. She paused and asked, where's His Royal Highness? His Royal Highness left early. The Crown Princess said, "I'll be back in a while. Dr. Joe might as well sit and have some refreshments. Since people are going to court, why take her into the palace so early?" But the thought just flashed by, and Man Bao sat obediently on the chair, because she had just eaten breakfast, and she didn't really want to eat snacks. The atmosphere was a little embarrassing for a while. The princess remembered what the prince had mentioned to her last time, and she got up and smiled and said, "Why don't we go for a walk in the garden? I heard that Dr. Zhou Xiao likes to keep some flowers and plants." Man Bao's eyes lit up and got up immediately. "Yeah, I like flowers and plants very much." This is the first time she has seen her likes and dislikes in front of the crown princess, so she couldn't help but smile even bigger, so she simply took Man Bao to the garden of the East Palace. At this time, many trees in the garden have lost their leaves, but many flowers and trees are well taken care of. The most important thing is that they have a conservatory for flowers. The precious flowers and plants were all in pots and were moved to the conservatory. They would not be removed until the spring was warm, but Man Bao was not very interested in them now. She is more interested in the flowers and plants in the garden that seem to be dry or bare. Keek also seemed to realize something, and since entering the garden, Ding Ling began to give Man Bao the way, telling her which plant data was not included. After walking for a while, Man Bao squatted down, pointed to a small dwarf tree with no leaves and asked, "What kind of flower is this?" After thinking about it, the crown princess smiled and said, "It seems to be called Huang Dume. Why does Dr. Zhou like it? I can't see its flowers now, and I'm not sure what it's called just by scanning the branches." After Man Bao got Keek's affirmative answer, he nodded with a smile, and found a particularly ridiculous reason. "Looking at its branches, it looks like a beautiful flower." The crown princess smiled and said, "At that moment, I ask someone to dig a plant and send it to Dr. Zhou Xiao." Man Bao smiled shyly, "That's so embarrassing. I see that it has thick branches and many branches. Why don't you give me a branch?" Crown princess, she thought she didn't want it anymore. She smiled and said, "It doesn't have to be that way. We still have several plants of this flower in our garden." After all, she asked the palace servants behind her to write it down, and she had to dig it up and send it to Changqing Lane. Seeing that she was so generous, Man Bao also walked freely in the garden, picking out many plants that she had never seen before. There were 9 plants in total. Man Bao and Keek haven't felt this amount of harvest for a long time. She is not happy, and Keek is also very happy. The crown princess didn't think so. She felt that Man Bao was a little strange. The flowers and plants selected were not particularly precious, and some of them didn't even have an impression on her at all. When she asked a gardener, he said they were very small flowers. Not too precious. But she just liked it very much, but she didn't even look at the peonies and chrysanthemums raised in the conservatory. Satisfied, Man Bao walked back with the crown princess, and after drinking a cup of tea, she let go a lot, and she said, "Niang Niang, should I give you a pulse first? Medicine or something?" The crown princess took the tea in her hand and said, "Do I want to take medicine too?" Man Bao nodded and said, "Generally speaking, preparing for pregnancy before pregnancy is not only good for the mother, but also for the fetus. The child may be healthier, smarter, and easier to conceive." The crown princess sat up slightly, nodded reservedly, and said, "Then I will trouble Dr. Zhou Xiao." She looked at the palace maids beside her, and they immediately moved a small stool and placed it under the crown princess' seat, and asked Man Bao to come forward to see the doctor. Man Bao went to his medicine box and took the pulse pillow from it. The crown princess's health is actually not very good, especially when she was ill with qi some time ago, but now she seems to be fine, but she is too worried, so her health is not very good. It seems that she has to recuperate her body before getting pregnant. Before prescribing medicine, Man Bao always likes to tell the patient about the condition in detail, so that she knows how to recuperate. The crown princess was only slightly surprised, but she quickly thought that the imperial physicians had persuaded her a few words, saying that she was too worried and wanted her to relax. The crown princess felt that the imperial doctors were talking nonsense. As a crown princess, can she not worry about it? There was a brother-in-law who wanted to take her husband down and be the prince himself. The ministers in the court and the middle court impeached the prince and her family at every turn, and the prince had no children. The prince was irritable every day. She wanted to feel at ease, but she had to have conditions. But she didn't expect pregnancy to have such a big relationship with worry. The crown princess asked hesitantly, "If you keep worrying too much, will you never be able to conceive a child?" See you at 10 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1270. It's not really, it's just not easy to conceive, and it's not easy to keep it when you're pregnant. If you keep it, the condition of the fetus may not be very good. Even if it is finally born safely, the body and intelligence of the child may also be affected. Princess. Everyone looked at the crown princess with a sad look on their faces and admonished them one after another, "My lord, please relax, and look at the outside world, and you don't have to fight with those people." The crown princess waved her hand and told most of the people to retreat, and then asked Man Bao, "Then how do I deal with it?" Man Bao said, "It's not difficult, just relax, take a month's medicine to recuperate your body, and then I'll prescribe some contraceptive pills for you in the next month, and then stop the medicine for a month, and then the prince's body will also recuperate. When it's almost done, you can think about having children." The princess frowned and asked, "The prince's illness will be treated for 3 months?" Man Bao nodded, "Almost, it depends on the situation. Generally, you can see some results in 2 months. The main reason is that the prince has to follow the doctor's advice and drink less. It's best not to have sex in the past 2 months. Crown Princess, didn't you say it would take 4 months? Man Bao blinked and said without changing his face, "That's right, 3 months may not be successful, and 4 months will be more successful." The princess understood, and she burst out laughing. When she smiled, everyone relaxed a lot. The princess smiled and said, "You're slick, but don't let the prince hear this." Man Bao, "If the maiden doesn't tell me, the crown prince will not know." She didn't mention the 2 palace maids behind the princess. They were the confidants of the princess at first sight. If the princess didn't let them say it, they would definitely not say it. The crown princess smiled and nodded, "Okay." The crown princess turned the teacup beside the table and said, "How about you, Dr. Zhou, tell me how to prepare for pregnancy and get pregnant faster." Man Bao thought of the booklet she gave to her eldest sister back then. She was familiar with it. She had prepared it for her eldest sister back then, plus the booklet. When the prince led people into the hall, he saw Zhou Man and the prince concubine sitting together on the couch stretched out, not knowing what they were talking about. He couldn't help but glanced at the crown princess twice, and then looked at Zhou Man suspiciously. Man Bao coughed lightly, her eyes wandering slightly. She stood up and saluted the prince. The prince waved his hand to excuse her from the ceremony, and when the palace servants served the tea, everyone left, and only Eunuch Wu and the crown prince remained. Man Bao knew that he was going to see a doctor, so he stepped forward to feel his pulse. She had seen it last time, and she went back to discuss his pulse case with teacher Mo, and formulated a complete set of treatment methods. At this time, the pulse was just to confirm again, so soon. She did not ask any other questions, and said directly, "His Royal Highness, go to the inner room and take off your clothes, and I will give you a needle." The prince was satisfied that she didn't ask those embarrassing questions in front of the princess, got up and went to the inner room. Eunuch Wu hurriedly followed to serve. Because of the cold, 3 braziers were burned in the inner room, and the prince took off his clothes and lay on the quilt. Man Bao took out the needle bag, found the acupuncture point and began to puncture it. While puncturing the needle, he asked him how he felt, whether it was pain, soreness, or something else. After all the needles had been pierced, Man Bao had to turn the needle from time to time, and the prince felt a warm air rising from his abdomen, making him a little drowsy. Originally, the room was still a little cold even after lighting 3 braziers, but now the crown prince was sweating a thin layer of sweat. Eunuch Wu and the crown prince both saw it, and they both took the handkerchief and wiped him carefully. Sweat, lest he catch a cold. The prince didn't wake up. Man Bao finished his work, rested his hands for a while, looked down and saw the sleeping face of the prince, and signaled the princess to take a look. The crown princess looked down, and Man Bao whispered, "Have you seen it? His eyes are dark and haggard, this is the appearance of a false foundation." Princess. Man Bao continued to whisper, "In the future, you can persuade the prince to go to bed early, not to drink alcohol, not to have sex, and then see it in 3 months. The princess could only nod her head. Eunuch Wu on the side pricked up his ears to hear it, and silently remembered it in his heart. The prince fell into a deep sleep this night. After Man Bao pulled out the needle, he didn't wake up. He lay on the pillow and snored. Eunuch Wu carefully covered him with the quilt, and Man Bao said to the crown princess again, "See, the empress will wake up when she pulls the needle," which shows how late the crown prince stayed up late at night. The princess nodded silently. Man Bao put the needle bag into the medicine box, took the medicine box out, and then looked at Eunuch Wu. "Have you got the medicine for the prescription I prescribed last time?" "Yes, it's all taken care of." Eunuch Wu immediately asked respectfully, "Would you like to take a look?" Man Bao, "Look, I'll take a look and I'll add 2 sleeping pills to him, so he can go to sleep after taking a bath at night." Eunuch Wu immediately went out and let someone bring a medicine bag. Man Bao checked and nodded, the medicine was fine, so he took a piece of paper and wrote down the 2 medicines and the amount, add it in, and take a bath together. Eunuch Wu smiled and said, "I also asked Dr. Zhou Xiao to rewrite a complete prescription. You know, these prescriptions must be archived in the end." When Man Bao heard it, he did not refuse, and filled the prescription directly under the 2 medicines and handed it to Eunuch Wu. The prince fell into a deep sleep this night, and Man Bao still didn't wake up after taking the medicine and tea. She glanced outside, and seeing that it was noon, she got up and said goodbye. She said to the crown princess, "If he doesn't wake up in half an hour, wake him up, otherwise he will not be able to sleep at night if he sleeps too much during the day. Again, tomorrow I will enter the palace at noon, so it is better for him to take a nap when the needle is inserted, otherwise it is not good for him to go to bed too early or too late." Even the crown princess couldn't help but praise her for being careful in seeing a doctor. Other imperial doctors wouldn't say this. The prince concubine personally sent Man Bao to the door of the hall and asked, "Aren't you going to give your mother a needle tomorrow?" "It's all right, I'll tie the prince before I'll tie the queen. The queen's condition has stabilized, and it is not difficult to puncture her." The crown princess had asked the gardener to dig up all the 9 kinds of flowers and plants that Man Bao had selected this morning, put them in pots and put them on the car. Because she was worried that some of the flowers and plants would not live, she even had them dug 2 more plants of each kind, so she needed 2 in a single car. Man Bao saw that the scooter following the carriage was full of flower pots, and was not satisfied, and Keek was also very satisfied. One person felt that the prince and the princess were well managed, and next time they could visit the gardens of other palaces. Seeing her happily looking at the flower pot in the car, Eunuch Wu couldn't help but ask cautiously, "Dr. Zhou, is there anything special about these flowers and plants?" "Yes," Man Bao said with a deep face, "I have never seen them." "Thank you very much for your reward, but I hope that such a large amount will not be rewarded in the future. At present, my monthly pass has exceeded 50. Originally, I paid off the debt of the reward yesterday, and I planned to add a monthly pass today, but I ended up with 2 more. I can see the date of my current monthly pass, and I can't be in a hurry. Finally, I wish everyone a good dream. See you tomorrow.